I don't think Jesus lived. More and more, the more I read about it, the more I think I'm not sure there ever was even a historical Jesus.
Jesus and Santa Claus is the same name. Once they couldn't control you with Santa Claus as a kid, no more they use Jesus.
We can't even confirm that his name was Yeshua. We know there were a bunch of messianic figures around this time that got glommed together and had things added to it. And this is a damning problem for Christianity, the fact that they cannot unassailably demonstrate that Jesus was in fact a real person.
So what's going on here? Who is telling the truth? Is Jesus just Santa Claus for adults? It is one of the internet's favorite arguments against Christianity. People often say, there is no evidence Jesus ever existed. The only evidence comes from the Bible. The Gospels were written hundreds of years later. The Bible is just one big telephone game over thousands of years. Jesus was copied from pagan mythology. But is any of this true? So today, we are putting those claims through the spiritual stress test. Is Jesus simply an imaginary character? A comforting story people believe because they are afraid of death? After all, you have never seen him. There is no video evidence. So why should anyone believe he was real? Because that question misunderstands how ancient history works. If we demanded video, DNA, and repeatable experiments for every ancient person, we would also have to reject Julius Caesar, Socrates, and Alexander the Great. Nobody does that. So why is Jesus treated differently? The overwhelming majority of historians, Christian, Jewish, agnostic, and atheist, accept that Jesus of Nazareth was a real historical person. They debate his identity. They debate his miracles. They debate the resurrection. But among historians who specialize in the ancient world, the idea that Jesus never existed is a fringe position. So what counts as evidence? Well, science and history answer different questions. Science investigates observable and repeatable processes in the natural world. History investigates unique events that occurred in the past. You cannot recreate Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon in a laboratory. You cannot place Alexander the Great under a microscope, but that does not make them imaginary. Historians examine documents, testimony, archaeology, inscriptions, coins, cultural context, and the proximity of sources to the events they describe. Then they ask, what conclusion best explains the available evidence? Jesus deserves the same standard. Nothing more, nothing less. We are focused on the historical foundation for Jesus Christ. But whether Jesus truly performed miracles and rose from the dead is a question of faith, not history or science. Let's start by reviewing the evidence outside the Bible. Roman and Jewish writers record Jesus and the movement centered on him. Tacitus was one of Rome's most important historians. Writing around AD 116, he described Emperor Nero blaming Christians for the Great Fire of Rome. Tacitus explained that the name Christian came from Christus, who had been executed under Pontius Pilate during the reign of Emperor Tiberius. Tacitus was known to be hostile toward Christianity. He had no reason to defend the gospel, yet he confirms the central historical outline. Jesus Christ was the figure behind Christianity. He was executed under Pontius Pilate, and the movement spread from Judea to Rome. Tacitus wrote decades after Jesus and does not identify his source, but his account still shows that hostile Roman history understood Christianity to originate with an executed historical founder, not a medieval invention. Next, we have the first-century Jewish historian Josephus, who refers to James as the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ. Most scholars accept this passage as authentic. Josephus also contains a longer passage about Jesus saying, "About this time there lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man. for he was one who performed surprising deeds and was a teacher of people who received the truth with pleasure. He won over many Jews and many of the Greeks. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, upon hearing him accused by the leading men among us, condemned him to the cross, those who had first loved him did not cease. For he appeared to them alive again on the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and countless other marvelous things about him. And the tribe of Christians, so called after him, has still, to this day, not disappeared. The surviving form appears to contain later Christian editing, but many scholars believe it preserves an authentic reference to Jesus as a teacher who attracted followers and was condemned under Pilate. Now we have Pliny the Younger. Around AD 112, the Roman governor Pliny the Younger wrote to Emperor Trajan asking how Christians should be punished. He reported that Christians gathered before sunrise and sang hymns to Christ as to a god. Within the early 2nd century, Roman officials were already dealing with established Christian communities worshiping Jesus. Christianity was not invented by Constantine 300 years later. Even early opponents of Christianity generally argued about who Jesus was, not whether someone had invented him from nothing. Pliny does not provide a biography of Jesus. His importance is that established communities were worshiping Christ as divine centuries before Constantine or the Council of Nicaea. But written evidence is only part of the case. Archaeology has also repeatedly confirmed the historical world described in the Gospels. In 1961, archaeologists excavating the Roman theater at Caesarea Maritima discovered a damaged limestone inscription. It contained the name Pontius Pilate and identified him as prefect of Judea. This artifact is now known as the Pilate Stone. The Roman official associated with Jesus' crucifixion was a real governor whose administration left physical evidence. Pilate is also attested through coins and ancient writers such as Josephus, Philo, and Tacitus. Together, the inscription, the coins, and multiple ancient historical sources place Pontius Pilate exactly where the Gospels place him, as the Roman governor of Judea during the lifetime of Jesus. Archaeology has also confirmed that Nazareth and Capernaum existed during the relevant period. Excavations at Nazareth have uncovered first-century homes, tombs, and agricultural structures, confirming that it was a real Jewish village during Jesus' lifetime. At Capernaum, archaeologists have uncovered first-century homes and the foundations beneath a later synagogue, giving us a remarkable glimpse into the fishing village where Jesus spent much of his public ministry. Nearby, archaeologists also uncovered a first-century synagogue at Magdala, complete with the famous Magdala Stone, carved with a 7-branched menorah. It provides a rare picture of the type of Galilean synagogue that existed during Jesus' lifetime. Excavations have also uncovered the Pool of Bethesda and the Pool of Siloam, locations described in the Gospel of John. Before their excavation, the precise locations and layouts described in John were uncertain. Archaeologists later uncovered the unusual double pool layout at Bethesda, matching John's description of 5 covered porticos. At the Pool of Siloam, excavators discovered a large stepped pool and an ancient pilgrimage road leading toward the temple. These discoveries demonstrate that the Gospel writers possessed detailed knowledge of first-century Jerusalem long before archaeology confirmed it. Archaeologists also discovered the remains of a first-century Jewish man named Yehohanan, who had been crucified. A nail remained associated with his heel bone. That find provides direct physical evidence of Roman crucifixion in first-century Judea. Even more remarkable, Jehohanan wasn't simply crucified. He was also buried. His remains demonstrate that at least some crucified Jews received a Jewish burial, making the Gospel account of Jesus' burial historically consistent with known 1st century Jewish practice. Archaeology does not prove every event in the Gospels, but it confirms that their political leaders, locations, customs, and execution practices belong to the real world of 1st century Judea. Now, let's switch gears to the earliest Christian evidence of Jesus Christ. Most people assume the Gospels are the earliest Christian writings. They are not. The earliest surviving Christian documents are the letters of Paul. Most historians accept at least 7 as authentic: Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Philippians, 1st Thessalonians, and Philemon. These letters were written approximately 20 to 30 years after Jesus' crucifixion. In ancient history, that is remarkably early. Many people connected to the beginning of Christianity were still alive. Jesus' family members were still participating in the movement. Paul was also not separated from Jesus by a centuries-long chain of anonymous storytellers. In Galatians, Paul says he personally met Peter, one of Jesus' closest disciples, and James, Jesus' brother. Paul was connected directly to named people who had known Jesus. Now compare that with Alexander the Great. Alexander died in 323 BC. Some of the fullest surviving accounts of his life were written centuries later by authors such as Arrian and Plutarch, who relied upon earlier sources that no longer survive. Alexander is also supported by coins, inscriptions, and archaeology, so no serious historian believes he was imaginary. This does not mean Jesus and Alexander have identical types of evidence, but the comparison exposes a double standard. We accept that ancient history must be reconstructed from the evidence that survived. Then Paul writes about Jesus within 20 to 30 years of the crucifixion, personally knows his disciple and brother, and people still dismiss the entire story as a late legend. The evidence does not support that conclusion. Paul's letters become even more important in 1 Corinthians. There, Paul records an earlier summary of Christian belief. Christ died. He was buried. He was raised. And he appeared to Peter, the 12 apostles, James, other followers, and finally Paul. Many scholars believe Paul was passing along a tradition that existed before he wrote the letter. The central Christian proclamation did not emerge centuries later. It was present at the beginning of the movement. After Paul's letters, we come to the 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Another common misconception is that the Gospels were written hundreds of years after Jesus. They were not. Matthew and Luke appear to have used Mark, so the 4 Gospels should not be treated as 4 entirely independent modern eyewitness statements. But literary dependence does not make them historically worthless. Historians examine both their shared material and their distinct traditions. The 4 Gospels were written during the 1st century, within the earliest generations of Christianity. The authors wrote to persuade readers that Jesus was the Messiah. Some people hear that and immediately dismiss them as biased. But nearly every ancient writer had a political, religious, or philosophical perspective. Historians do not discard Roman sources because Romans wrote them. They examine them critically. The same standard should be applied to the Gospels. The Gospel writers describe 1st century Jewish customs, Roman officials, political leaders, towns, and geography. Many of those details correspond with what historians and archaeologists know about the period. The Gospels also preserve material that is not always flattering to the earliest Christians. The disciples repeatedly misunderstand Jesus. Peter denies knowing him. The disciples flee when he is arrested. And women are presented as the first witnesses to the empty tomb in a culture where women generally held less public and legal authority than men. Those are unusual details for someone inventing the most convenient possible origin story. The Gospels are not modern biographies. They are ancient biographies. They deserve critical investigation, not automatic acceptance, but not automatic dismissal either. Another common accusation is that the Bible was rewritten so many times that nobody knows what it originally said. This is often compared to a giant game of telephone, but the manuscript tradition works in the opposite way. Today, scholars possess thousands of Greek New Testament manuscripts, along with many thousands more in Latin, Syriac, Coptic, and other ancient languages. These are not thousands of separate eyewitness accounts. They are handwritten copies, and that is what makes them valuable. Imagine that only one copy of the New Testament survived. Someone could alter it, destroy the previous version, and leave no way to discover the change. But Christianity spread rapidly across the ancient world. Churches in different regions copied the same writings independently. They translated them into other languages and quoted them in sermons, letters, and theological debates. A major alteration introduced in one location would conflict with manuscripts already circulating elsewhere. Scholars can therefore compare copies from different centuries, regions, and languages. They can see where the manuscripts agree and where scribes made changes. Most variants involve spelling, word order, grammar, repeated words, or accidentally skipped lines. Some larger passages are openly marked in modern Bible footnotes. The differences are not hidden. They are visible because the manuscript tradition is so extensive. And despite those variations, the central account remains stable. Jesus teaches. Jesus gathers disciples. Jesus is crucified under Pontius Pilate, and his followers proclaim his resurrection. In the telephone game, the original message disappears. But with New Testament manuscripts, scholars can compare thousands of manuscript witnesses from different centuries, regions, and languages that show the message did not substantially change. The manuscripts do not independently prove that every event occurred. They allow us to test whether the central account was rewritten beyond recognition. So the number of manuscripts does not conceal textual changes. It exposes them. Now, to understand the reliability of the entire Bible and legitimacy of Jesus Christ, we must discuss the Dead Sea Scrolls. One of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century came in 1947. Bedouin shepherds discovered thousands of ancient manuscripts in caves near the Dead Sea. Today, they're known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. These scrolls contain portions of nearly every book of the Old Testament and date from roughly 200 years before Jesus to the 1st century after him. One of the most famous discoveries is the Great Isaiah Scroll, a complete copy of the book of Isaiah written more than a century before Jesus was born. When scholars compared it with Hebrew manuscripts copied nearly 1,000 years later, they found mostly spelling differences, minor wording variations, and small copying changes. But the overall message had been preserved with remarkable accuracy. The Dead Sea Scrolls also answer another common misconception. The Old Testament passages Christians later pointed to as messianic prophecies already existed centuries before Jesus. Christians did not go back and write Isaiah after Jesus' life to make it appear that he fulfilled prophecy. The manuscripts were already there. Again and again, the historical setting described in the Bible has been confirmed, not because archaeologists were trying to prove Christianity, but because they kept digging. Historians disagree about many details of Jesus' life, but there is broad agreement on the basic outline. Jesus was a 1st century Jewish teacher associated with Nazareth. He gathered followers and was crucified under Pontius Pilate. His crucifixion is one of the strongest historical facts we possess about his life. So now that we have the evidence, let's debunk the most common myths about Jesus. There is no evidence Jesus ever existed. False. Jesus is documented in early Christian writings, Roman history, and Jewish history, and his existence is accepted by the overwhelming majority of specialists. The only evidence comes from the Bible. False. Tacitus, Josephus, and Pliny provide non-Christian evidence concerning Jesus or the early movement centered on him. The Gospels were written hundreds of years later. False. The Gospels come from the 1st century, and Paul's authentic letters were written within approximately 20 to 30 years of the crucifixion. The Bible was changed so many times that nobody knows what it originally said. False. Thousands of manuscripts allow scholars to identify copying differences and recover the central text with strong confidence. Christianity was invented by Emperor Constantine. False. Christianity had existed for nearly 3 centuries before Constantine. Archaeology has found nothing connected to the Gospel accounts. False. Archaeology has confirmed Pontius Pilate, Nazareth, Capernaum, the pools of Bethesda and Siloam, and 1st century Roman crucifixion practices. Jesus was copied from pagan myths. This claim usually compares Jesus with figures like Horus, Mithras, Dionysus, or Osiris. But many of the popular similarities, such as a virgin birth, 12 disciples, crucifixion, and resurrection after 3 days, do not appear together in the earliest sources for any one pagan god. More importantly, Christianity emerged from 1st century Judaism, and its earliest writings are rooted in Jewish scripture, theology, and messianic expectation. The evidence points to a Jewish historical movement, not a fictional Jesus assembled from pagan myths. So bottom line, is Jesus just Santa for adults? Someone without any historical evidence or legitimacy? Overwhelmingly, no. Santa Claus, in his modern form, is a legendary figure shaped by folklore and tradition. Now, some people will point out that Saint Nicholas was a real 4th century Christian bishop. That's true. The modern Santa Claus, however, is not simply the historical Nicholas. Over centuries, his story was blended with folklore, literature, and popular culture into the red-suited gift-giver we know today. The comparison people are making isn't between Jesus and the historical Nicholas, it's between Jesus and the modern mythical Santa. Those are 2 very different categories. But in comparison, Jesus of Nazareth is one of the most studied figures in ancient history. His life has been investigated by Christian, Jewish, agnostic, and atheist historians, by archaeologists, textual critics, linguists, and scholars from virtually every perspective. They disagree about whether Jesus was God. They disagree about his miracles. They disagree about the resurrection, but they overwhelmingly agree on the basic historical foundation. Jesus lived. He taught. He gathered followers. He was crucified under Pontius Pilate, and his followers began proclaiming that he had risen from the dead. History brings us to the cross. Faith asks what happened next. You do not have to become a Christian to acknowledge that Jesus was a real historical figure. But once the evidence is honestly examined, the comparison with Santa Claus does not survive. The real spiritual stress test is no longer whether Jesus existed. It is, who was he? And what do you believe happened after the cross? What's one idea in this video that you agreed or disagreed with? Let us know in the comments. If this challenged the way you've been thinking, we would love to have you join us on our endeavor towards finding truth. Subscribe if you'd like to follow the journey, and we will see you in the next one. God bless.